Yes, welcome tonight for our second night, understanding ourselves and understanding where is disease coming from. Even though the message of health is for everyone, it's not understood by everyone. Because on one side we have a lot of pre-information that may go against what we hear new. And so we need to decide, do we stick with the old information or do we take the new one? And that's somehow a battle there in our mind. But the challenge is ours, and if we are willing to learn, I believe we can learn more. So we start very simple, and I think simplicity is something that we should put at the basis of all our things. We start with the body communication. And we have seen that there is something in medicine that we miss when it comes through disease. And we saw that, what is it? So we understand the signals of our body is intentional, and they are there to save our life. Yeah, the hunger is there to save my life. The thirst is also there to save me. The tiredness to save me. The shortness of breath, the lack of oxygen, the freezing, the sweating. All those symptoms are there to save my life. And as well is disease there to save my life. But I need to understand what it says. Because we don't die on the disease, but we die on the lack of that what disease is showing. And we said a little bit, that is, it's love. Because love is something, of course, everyone in his own mind has a certain definition of that, but we will also come to that to see how it fits to our body. But it's a spiritual element that is expressed through a physical symptom. And that's most hardly sometimes to understand. It was hard for me to understand it. And I took God 2.5 years until I was convinced that health or disease has to do with the way we think, and love is a matter of thinking. And so I came to the conclusion for myself and was convinced, now after 22 years, I'm even more convinced that the fuel of life is a spiritual element. You know, we as Christians learn a lot from the Bible, but we usually miss that which is essential. God gave manna from heaven to the Israelites for 40 years. What did he want to teach them by that? Do you remember that? Pardon? Well, yes, but what? Because the manna falls down from heaven. All that we feed comes from where? From the earth. So what comes from heaven that feeds us? Well, it's not the rain, because we don't eat or drink the rain. The manna was given from heaven, according to God, that he said in Deuteronomy 8:3, for one purpose, to show us that man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. So the manna was there to make people aware that life is dependent on the Word of God, which is love, yes, and not from the earth. And then we find Jesus in John 6 explaining that he is the manna that comes from heaven. And he brings an argument to the people there. He says, everyone that ate the manna in the desert died. But who eats this manna that comes from heaven will never die, will live forever. So in which part is life? In the earthly things? In biology? In chemistry? No. Life is in a spiritual element. It's in the Word. That's why Jesus says at the end of John 6, He says, the flesh is worth nothing. It's the Spirit that gives life. And He says, my words are spirit and are life. So when we hear that on religious level, we agree to it. But when we hear it on physical level, we cannot understand it. That disease, I put it so in this provoking matter, is actually the result of lacking of the spiritual element, love, in our lives. It means separation from God, is it? So we are not aware that our body lives by something that is spiritual, not by something that is physical. And how can I prove it to you? How can one prove things so that we can understand it? And the only way to prove things is by something unchangeable, and the law is unchangeable. Something is equal or is showing how God is, it's the law, because He is unchangeable. And if the law cannot convince us about things, then nothing can convince us. It's my main argument to show that our life, our body function is dependent on the way we process information. And information is transmitted through word. And if it would be the Word of God, if it would be the truth, we would live very well. And then the second thing by which I have to convince my patient that disease or the body lives not from a physical element, but from a spiritual one that creates a physical, we will see, is human nature. If we understand human nature, we understand, okay, I have to give him two types. I have to give him the physical elements, and I have to give him the spiritual element. And we'll see what comes first and what comes second. And then understanding where is the location for the spiritual element. Where does information come in? Where do our relationship start? Where do they take place? All those things are unknown to us. And for me, it was very important to understand where is the human being starting to function. Where is that button that makes things work? Because without pushing that button that makes things work, how much works? It's nothing. And everything has a button to start working. And we also need to have that. And of course, the Bible describes it as being the heart. Because God does say He does not look to the external. He looks to the heart of men. Because there is the relationship with God. There is where the information or the word comes in. So let us start simple but fast with the law. There are a few things, not many, that are crucial for us to understand. And that is the general structure of each element of creation is very simple. It's a channel. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's the smallest atom or the smallest particle to the most complex thing, everything works as a channel. And a channel must have, by definition, an entrance and an exit. And that is for all things. There is no exception. If you bring me one thing that doesn't work as a channel, then we have to put all things aside. But since I came to understand these things, and since I bring this message since 2009, I started my first presentations, never was there a possible contradiction, because we cannot bring anything that is an element that keeps something for itself. So there is one law that governs everything, and that governs the entrance and the exit. So more you don't need to govern. And the channel, of course, has its needs, and he must, before he can do anything, he must take. So the first part of the law says nothing can exist or function by itself except God. Yes? Everything that we find in nature needs power in order to do something or even to exist. And that power comes from outside of that element. It is not inherent in that element. It doesn't have it. It must take it. And the second, also very important thing is that the channel can do nothing for itself. That is, you need to pass it on. So when we would ask some children if they have eaten today, they might say yes. And if you ask them for whom did they eat, what will they answer? For themselves. So is that the truth or is that a lie? Now, who can convince us if it's the truth or it's a lie? It's the law that convinces us. And the law says that nothing can do anything for itself. So can you eat for yourself? No, because how much of yourself is yours? How much of yourself is yours? Nothing. So if it's God's, then for whose sake do you eat? Oh, does not the Bible say, do everything for God's glory? Yes, if you eat or drink, or whatever you do it for God's glory. So that means we are responsible for this body because it does not belong to us. Because if we destroy it, He will take us in account, because why do you destroy whose body? God's body. Because if it's yours, of course you can do whatever you want with it. But if it's not yours, you need to give an account to whom it belongs to. It's very hard for us to understand this, and we will see when we look tomorrow to the heart why it's hard for us to understand that nothing that we have is ours. It's just very, very, very hard for us to see that, because it's subconsciously we own things. I eat for myself, while there is nothing in me that belongs to me. So, in our simple understanding of how the stomach works, how much does the stomach take and keep for itself? So he takes the food, yes, we put it in. Does he keep anything for himself? If he would keep anything for itself, what would happen with us? We would die, because the channel needs to be open. That's why when we have a congestion, a blockage of our intestine, doesn't matter if we have an infarct there or just something blocks it, we need to urgently intervene, because if that channel remains blocked, the whole system collapses and we die. So the blood keeps how much for itself? The lung of the oxygen it takes in, how much does it keep for itself? 0. So if anything would keep anything for itself, that is the breaking of the law. So I was once in Asia in a school, in a college, 750 students, and here was sitting the girls and here was sitting the boys, because in some places they keep them separate. And so I asked the girls if they need love. You never ask a boy if he needs love because he doesn't know that. But I asked the girls if they need love, and what do they say? Yes, yes. A lot or less? Yeah, they will say a lot of love. Yeah, a lot of love. And I said, that's fine. You need that love. But for whose sake do you need it? And then in silence, of course, and then I suggested that they just need that much love in order to love these other guys on the other side. Did they like it? Oh, you don't, you need love just to share it? Not for yourself? Nothing yours? Not a little bit for you? No. Because you live by sharing that love and giving it to others. That's how life is going. That's how the stomach survives. That's how everything works. So that is a very simple thing. The whole universe works according to this law for every element. They are in need of something, but everything they do not for themselves, but for the common good of that element to function. So, understanding that, automatically we must come to the question, is there a supplier of the need somewhere? So, according to the law, and according to understanding that everything is a channel, God as a source is absolutely evident. Because if there would be no God where things should start, then from where would the channel get their supply for power? There is no supplier for power. But there is nothing that can produce its own power. That's why God must, by definition, exist. And He is the cause of all things. And that's why I always paint God as a circle, because He is functioning as a circle. The Bible says He's the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. What is that? It's a circle. And then Paul says, from Him and through Him and to Him are how many things? All things. That's what? A circle. From Him, through Him, and to Him are all things. So, by definition of understanding the general things of nature, we must acknowledge that God must be there as the supplier of all things. Because evolution has no solution for the cause. Even if Big Bang would have existed, it is still an effect and not a cause. Because everything that has a beginning must be an effect. But that which has no beginning is a cause. I have patients, and I live in a country where it's very secular, and they come and I explain them the cause of their disease, and we must come to the source of all things and the source of love. And so they say, but I don't believe in God. I say, no, that's not a problem. You still have no choice. Because it's not a matter of faith. Because you cannot exist without this element. And I proved to him that he is taking it, but he's taking that what he needs from the wrong source. So God must exist, because without Him we have no cause for everything that exists. And everything that exists cannot exist by itself. So God by definition, has no beginning and no end, because then he would be an effect. That's why some people come and say, but where does God come from? Well, that's a stupid question. A cause has no cause. If the cause has a cause, it's an effect. Are you with me? So it's very simple. So that's why God must be a circle. He has no beginning and no end. He's the cause of all things, and every channel has a beginning and might have an end. If Lucifer, the first channel, would have not blocked himself, there would have never been an end to anything. So, all supply comes from God, and every element lives from the power that comes out of God. And by the way God created every channel, we can know that He is selfless. That means He does nothing for Himself. That's unselfishness. Because no channel was made to do anything for itself. Everything serves the common good, the higher good for the whole thing. And now that you understand this general principle of function of the universe, you understand that all things work in a circuit. There is nothing that is not working in a circuit that is an element. Now we can have different circuits, it can be electrical or non-electrical, but everything starts in a point and returns to the same point. And so, what is disease? It is when we put the whole body the whole being as a circuit system that functions. How many channels in this circuit needs to be blocked in order that nothing works? It's enough one channel. And then the whole system can collapse. Now there are many circuits in our body that we just destroy one, we won't die. But if it's the main circuit, like the circulatory circuit, when you have a heart attack and your heart fails, then your whole system will fail. Because every disease, every problem, every technical problem that we have is always a blockage of a channel or a rupture of a channel so that he cannot continue to give what he is supposed to give. And so, finally, everything returns back to God, to the whole thing. So when Lucifer rebelled against God, he brought how much of the universe in danger? We understand how things work. He brought the whole universe in danger because he was the first channel after God. Now, when God created the earth, He made man for what purpose? Why was man created? After God created the whole earth, He created man. And He created him for a purpose, because there was a lack of this earth for a supplier of the needs. And that's why He created Adam as king and said, you are responsible to supply all the needs of the earth. So he was the first channel bound to God, and through Adam, the whole earth was supplied, and through Adam, all things went back to God. So Adam was the main, how can I say, element that connected the earth to heaven. He was the supplier of all needs. That's why he was made king. So when Adam failed, how much of the earth was implicated? Everything. The animal was cut down from the source of love. The earth fell apart. Everything was put into death. And if Christ would have not intervened to take that place of Adam, to reunite earth with heaven, we would not even exist. And salvation would never exist. So, things on this earth are all bound together. And this was put in Adam, and since Adam failed, the whole world failed. And now God brings Christ and reunites it, and we will see how that needs to work in our lives as well. But coming back to just our body, we also have a place where all things start. And that thing must be where all starts. It also must come to an end. And we'll see that a little bit later, but let us emphasize once again the law. There is a quote that I took, and it became the title of my presentations. That's why I call the general title of all my presentations is the law of life. See, when I started to do my ministry, it's not even a registered ministry. It's just I have no website. I have no, what can I say? There's no organization behind it. It's just me and God, and not even an advertising page. But, so when people invite me, but for me, myself, I have none. But I started with the mystery of life. I thought, because I found something out but then I saw a mystery of life, it's not sound so good. And then I found this quote, and I said, this is what I will call my ministry or my work. And this is from the first chapter. Even now all created things declare the glory of His excellence. There is nothing save the selfish heart of man that lives unto itself. No bird that cleaves the air, no animal that moves upon the ground, but ministers to some other life. There is no leaf of the forest or lowly blade of grass, but has its ministry. Every tree and shrub and leaf pours forth that element of life without which neither man nor animal could live. And man and animal in turn minister to the life of tree and shrub and leaf. What is that? A circle, I hope so. The flowers breathe fragrance and unfold their beauty in blessings to the world. The sun sheds its light to gladden 1,000 worlds. The ocean itself, the source of all our springs and fountains, receives the streams from every land, but takes to give. That's the law. It takes to give. But turning from all lesser representations, we behold God in Jesus. Looking unto Jesus, we see that it is the glory of our God to give. So, I do nothing of myself, said Christ. The living Father has sent me, and I live by the Father. That's the first part of the law. That is, He is dependent on God for how much? For everything. Jesus is consciously dependent on His Father, to orient after His Father. And then comes the second part of the law that says, I seek not my own glory, but the glory of Him that sent me. So for whom did Jesus live? For Himself? No, He lived from the Father's sake, because the Father wanted our salvation, so Jesus came to do that. In these words is set forth the great principle, which is the law of life for the universe. All things Christ received from God, but He took to give. That's the law. So in the heavenly courts, in His ministry for all created beings, through the beloved Son, the Father's life flows out to all, and through the Son it returns in praise and joyous service, a tide of love to the great source of all, and thus, through Christ, the circuit of beneficence is complete, representing the character of the great giver, the law of life. Is that beautiful? I enjoy it. I could not say it better. It is just a summary of the simplicity of the law. So, the law of life is take in order to give. And that does every element that God created, and Christ as the Son of God, who had as a human a beginning, lived according to this law. So, coming back to understanding the law of cause and effect. There is something that is mixed up and something that is decisive to separate. And that is the cause and the effect. So, where the effect is, the cause cannot be. Can you understand that? I'll give you an example. Here is a car. You see some painting, some scratching on the car. Would you ever think the car did that to itself? Yes or no? No, why not? I mean, you have not been there. You don't know the car, where it comes from. Why would you not suppose that the car does it to itself? Why? Because by the law, it's impossible. Imagine you park your car somewhere, and it happens in certain countries, in certain places, and then you come out and you see the scratches on the car. And then you hit your car and say, hey, why did you scratch yourself? Would you do that? No, because you know the car cannot scratch itself. Because it's an effect. And nothing physical can do anything wrong to itself. And the same thing is to our body. Can our body make itself sick? Yes or no? In no case, according to the law, there is no way that the body can make itself sick. It always is the result that something or someone made the body sick. Because it's a car. I mean, it's a little bit better than a car, but pure from physical, it's a physical element, and its chemistry the same like the car. So, according to the law, there is nothing physical that can break itself. You can leave this plastic here and it will never damage itself. There must other things come to damage it. And our body is chemistry. It's chemistry. And we can look to it, and you might have it in your, how many atoms or how many chemicals are in our body. Yes, you can number them even. So, when the body gets sick, he cannot be responsible to be sick. And you follow that. And know that we are all taught differently. We are taught that we have an immune system that attacks the whole body, and we are not aware that according to the law of the universe, to that which is unchangeable, the body is never able to do anything evil to itself. Nothing that is physical can do anything to itself. It always must be done from something else, from exterior of that. I see you're not very happy with this, but it challenged me. It made me very clear. I have a person that is your case that has a ringing in the ear. Just recently was this gentleman with me. He has 58 years old, and he has a ringing in his ear for, I think in 1997 or 1994, he got his ring in the ear. So, in the right side. Well, he said, I got used to it and was fine until now 2 weeks ago. It starts to become very strong. So what can I do? Of course, understanding that ringing, it's just a chemical change in the cortex of our brain, on the right cortex, and you get that as a sound. Yes, it's perceived like a sound. And even people perceive words or other things, music, or, we have all kinds of perceptions that are there. And now, you know for sure that that thing can come by itself? Yes or no? No, there must be something that causes it. And of course, I asked him then about other things. And he just told me that he recently replaced his left knee. So the right knee is still okay, but the left knee he had to replace. Now, if you know a little bit of anatomy, and we will see that, and you know that the right ear and the left knee are in the same brain side. And we will see that everything that is working in the body must start in the brain. There's nothing that does not start in the brain. Your arthrosis in your knee is not coming from the knee. Someone needs to do it to the knee. The knee is just a victim of it. But he doesn't understand it. He does not know it. The doctors have made good computer replacements, and so we replace the knee. But he doesn't know that what makes that ringing and that what destroyed his knee in 20-something years goes further because it is not stopped up here. So it goes somewhere else. Because you can never fool nature. Because nature works precisely to its laws. Now, who does it to this guy? Who does that damage that starts here and makes the ringing? He doesn't understand the ringing. He replaces the knee, and now the ringing gets stronger. And then may get anything else instead. So, when I understood the law that the body is always to be made sick from something external, I had to ask myself, who has access to its brain? Who has access to its brain? That it makes the damage. Because that ringing in the ear is just in your cortex, it's just in your brain, it's nowhere else. Who has access to there? Tell me who. No, the devil has no access to our brain. That's Christian ideas, but the access to our brain is ours. It's your own thought. So that's why I said, okay, there is nothing else that has access to the cortex, so who is it? Because someone needs to destroy that. So let us remember a little bit the great controversy for those who understand it. There is only one thing that matters in this universe. There's only one focus. The law separates cause and effect. And God is a cause, or the cause. And anything else He created is the effect. And Lucifer is the effect. Can God become an effect? No, because if He would become an effect, He would stop being a cause. Can Lucifer or an effect become a cause? No, because then he would stop being a effect. So everything that is battling in this world, every deception that exists, is just to change an effect into a cause, which is impossible. And this is what we need to understand. Medicine tells us the body makes himself sick, which is, according to the law, absolutely impossible. Absolutely impossible. But we all believe it because the scientists say it, and we have not a law that we should say, aha, what is it that makes that sick? So on all levels, on all informations that we have here on earth, if it's religious and in all religious circles, you have one issue: what is the cause and what is the effect? I put you a little question for thinking so that you cannot sleep tonight. What comes first? The disease or the bacteria? Exactly. So this is how the side effect of medicine work. We believe it's a side effect of the medicine, but actually the medicine just removes or puts the symptom in another place. Yes, you have high blood pressure. Now you take some medication to lower them, but that input that makes the high blood pressure needs to go somewhere else. And so then you have the side effect, and you say it's the element, it's the medication, but the medication just puts that evil or that what destroys the body in another place. So, coming back to my question, what comes first? You all believe bacteria, but it is wrong. The bacteria is the result of a disease, never the cause. How can you prove it? By the law. Very simple. What comes first? Nutrition or growth? What comes first? Nutrition or growth? What did God create? Humans first or the nutrition first? Well, always nutrition comes first, because the taking comes before giving. And the bacteria are growing or multiplication themselves because they have food. Yes? And what damages the body is what they produce, not they themselves. Bacteria in itself do nothing. But their production is a chemical, and they can make a chemical that is beneficial to the body or that is not beneficial to the body. That's why we put them in pathological ones and in non-pathological ones. So the good ones, we are happy for it, but for the bad ones, we are not happy for it. But now, the interesting thing is that those bacteria who make us, or make a poison, so to say, a toxin for our body, are only growing on a tissue that is already inflamed. So no inflamed tissue, no pathological bacteria. So what comes first? The food comes first. That's so simple as it is. But we are all upside down. This world is upside down in all things. And we don't even realize it because we don't measure things by something absolute. We just go and say, the doctor said it, and so it is. Yes, I had this patient that got its sinusitis on the right side of her sinuses, because we have two cortexes. We'll see how that works. And now she takes medication, and at that time that she takes the antibiotics, things go better. Yes, because the bacteria are reduced. Because can we kill bacteria? Or no? No, they are not. They're not killable because we cannot destroy them. We can reduce them, but they always exist because they exist in a non-functional situation, and you must put them on in order to multiply themselves. So here she was fine for 5 days during the taking of the antibiotics because she reduced the bacteria, she reduced the toxins, and then things start again. And then you take the second antibiotic, and it works a little bit, and then you take the third antibiotics, and you don't get healthy from your sinusitis. Why? Because there is not the bacteria the problem, there is something else that makes the inflammation. And yes, because it's outside, it has contact with the outside world, we have already all kinds of things, then the bacteria are very happy to grow there and multiply because they have good food. But if you take the inflammation away, it's gone. So, who makes it? Who makes the inflammation so that the bacteria can grow, the pathological one? Because the other one, they grow also on the good tissue. So, we're happy with them because it's a circle that we live with them, and it's all fine. So the main issue of everything we have in this world is to separate cause and effect. Separate cause and effect. If you study this a little bit deeper, you will see that that's the issue. It started there, and there is no more things than to confuse cause and effect. And making out of an effect a cause is the main deception in the world. So, looking our body. According to the law, he cannot injure himself. He must be injured from outside. What can injure the body? What is it? Can he be injured or not? Yes, he can. So he first has needs. In order to function, he needs a gas. He needs oxygen. And now we can give him the wrong gas. Yes, can we inhale the wrong gas? What will happen? Will he be happy with it? No, because he was set for the right gas. And you put him the wrong gas in, like carbon monoxide, and he will die. Carbon monoxide has no smell. You don't know it is there. Yes, it's just unperceptible. Yes, you can do it with some devices, but you just fall asleep and die. And I had a few cases in my life in which people just died in their bathroom, in a bathtub, having a gas heater, and they didn't open the window because it was winter, and they made a bath, him and his wife, and they both died because the monoxide could not go out, and you just inhale it without knowing it, and you pass away. It's a silent death because you cannot change that what the body needs. And then we can introduce the wrong liquid. We can give him poison or give him the wrong food into the body, and he will not work well. And by the wrong liquid, I often mention salt water. Yeah, salt water is healthy. Why not? Because we were made for sweet water. So drinking salt water leads to death because it takes water away instead of putting it in. So it's the wrong liquid or the wrong food, and the body will be destroyed. But there's also other things that can impact the body because he's also dependent on temperature. How many things in this universe are dependent on temperature? All things. Yes, it's a physical thing. Yeah, there are 7 elements of which every physical element is dependent. And that one of them is temperature and time. So our body was set for a certain temperature, and this temperature can be changed, and then the body will be destroyed. If you higher it up, yes, he melts, so to say, and if you freeze him, he gets slower and lower and finishes. Yeah. So then you can injure him by the wrong pressure, because how many things are dependent on pressure? It's also all chemical things are dependent on pressure. And if we change the pressure, that is, then we can destroy the body. Now, in all elements that can destroy the body, we can trace back what destroyed him. Yeah? When we have a pressure thing, an accident, or something, when we have a temperature or radiation, or we find the wrong liquid or the poison, the wrong gas, we can trace things back and say, this is it. There is something that can also damage the body where people don't trace it back, and that is the wrong thought. Now, if a thought can damage the body, you follow me? thinking, because the seminar is about thinking. If a thought can damage the body, can it come from inside or from outside the body? You are afraid to say the truth. If something can destroy the body, it must come from outside the body, because that what comes from inside the body cannot destroy the body. So the destruction must always come from outside. And if a thought can destroy, then he must come from outside of the body. And this was my findings. I said, look, this ring in the ear can only come from his own way of thinking, because there's nothing that touches his brain except his thought. And then understanding, and we will come to that, how the human works, then we can know for sure and trace back those things, if it's a thought or a temperature or a pressure issue, and you can go back and can say, this is the only cause that can it happen, because you exclude all other options. So, knowing the human nature, we will understand more. So, there must be a structure to the human being. It must have a structure that fits its function. Because without structure, there's no function. They all work together and they must fit together. And then we need to know those both. And we need to know that everything needs power in order to function. And we have seen already that we need love, that is information, and we need chemistry. Because we don't live by chemistry alone. And we have seen that something comes first and something comes second, and we want to prove that, because that is science. To understand human nature is science, because there is no other way that the structure is changed or function. And since God created how many humans? He created only one. And out of that one, he created the second one, and since then they just multiply. So are they all the same in structure, in function, and in needs? Yes, of course. Because they come all from one. And they're just multiplication of that one. So the structure cannot change, the function cannot change. Of course, you can destroy it. And the needs cannot change. They're always the same, how God made them to function. So, let us look a little bit into that. We have many organs in our body, and they all are together put in the brain. So, how many organs are governed through the brain? All of them. How do we know it? We can prove it, because we just need to damage certain part in the brain, and then we see the result of it. So, and everything must work in a circle, and that circle must start in the cortex, must start in the brain. Now, according to the law, how much can the body do by himself? I wrote it there, it's nothing, because it's an empty channel. He has needs, but he has no power. He needs a power source in order to work. And the question is, from where does his power come from? Because without power, the brain cannot work, or can it? Can the brain work without power? Of course not. Yeah? So the brain consists of two hemispheres, and the right and the left hemisphere are separated. They are not connected together. They are only come together by the nerves how can I say this? They cross, but they don't become one. So my conclusion why we have two brain sides is very simple. It is because we are half from mother, half from father. And we are exactly 50% and 50%. Yeah? And through the stories that I took from my patient, I could trace back which is the brain from mother and which is the brain from father, because you can see how that the relationship reflects in which brain. And so you say, this must come from father, because it's the relationship with father that reflects there. And so since we are from two parents, and that's why we have one-sided diseases. As all those one-sided diseases prove that disease is an intention. That ringing in that right ear was why? It was a very simple story. 4 years before his ringing appeared, his father passed away. And it fits very well to be the father side of his brain. And since he mourns his father for over 20 years, that mourning rottens and destroys his knee on the left side. Because from here, the power is put into the function of your left side of the body, and it destroys his knee. But the doctor doesn't know that. With the ringing of the ear, of course, every ENT can do nothing much. It is not painful. People can get used to it. But when it affects your knee, you need to walk. How often? Every time you need to use your knee. And now it's painful. And you don't understand your body language, so that you stop that what destroys it. And finally, after 20 years, you replace it, but you don't solve the cause. It just goes to another place. Because we have not understood how that relationship with father is important or not. So do you think that the death of a father will impact a child? Yes or no? Yes. And even more, the death of the mother. Those are events in one's life that people will not take much emphasis on it, and doctors would not even ask. But even if they would see the connection, they would say, what can I tell him? What's the solution? Why do we mourn? Why do we mourn? And why does mourning destroy? Why does it not? Why does it not make us good? It was the similar case. A lady lost her mother, and not long after she got knee pain on her right knee, and she had that for many years. I think 13 years. She had the knee issues. She went to the doctor. She does the mechanics. You treat the knee while you should treat what? Well, more than the brain, you will see. You need to treat that. What makes that thought that after 13 years she gets breast cancer on the right side, which would have been avoidable if you would have taken the first symptom that comes up and says, stop that. But not understanding it, you just go for it, because that what makes us sick is not evidently wrong. Because if it would be evidently wrong, we would all fight it. But it's deception. It's unknown to us how it works and what makes us wrong. That's why people keep their thoughts, their mourning. They go to the cemetery, they go and remember their death one, and they don't know how sick that makes them. Because we are unaware that's wrong. I had a call, and there was a lady, she got the herpes zoster shingles, yes. Very hurtful, they go along a nerve, and she had it on the right side of her body, shingles, and she came to do something about it. And of course, I want to know why. I know why. I know because I know which side is mother's side, which side is father's side. And so I asked her about her mother relationship, and she told me her mother passed away 4 years ago. And that's fine, but the shingles, since they are an acute situation, they must come from an acute situation. Okay, they must come from something that is there. And now she told me that she was in vacation. There was no stress, no stress. You're on vacation with your husband, with your family. But during this vacation, it was the 4th anniversary of the death of her mother. And so they took that day to remember mother. And 2 days later, the shingles appeared. Exactly. Because Jesus said, let the deaf mourn themselves. So that's why I say the most things that we all say they are good, we never saw what they do in the body. Because we have no idea how relationship works. We don't know how that impacts our brain and why it makes sick. And you imagine, when I was at my beginning in my practice, I was like a little child watching the stories, watching the effects and saying, why does that effect come from a normal thing? And I asked myself, is it maybe not normal? Because I went by the permission or by that idea that whatever destroys the body cannot be good. And if it's an idea that destroys the body, it cannot be the truth. Can you follow on that? Yeah? Cannot be truth. If it's an idea that destroys you, that makes you headache, that makes you whatever issue in your body, then that idea must be a lie. Because the truth, Jesus says, sets you free. And from free thoughts, you cannot destroy your body. It's impossible. It's nowhere freedom brought any issue in one's life. It's the opposite of it. And mourning is freedom or not freedom? Well, I know all those stories. I know all those arguments because I'm not doing this seminar since a few years. That I have listened to all these ideas. I took the body and I said, why does it destroy the body? Why does it give not peace of mind? And yes, we are surprised. We need to confront that situation. We need to evaluate it correctly. But we need to evaluate it in that way so that we do not destroy ourselves by that evaluation. So here is the trick. And now you haven't listened to the end of it of all, but just leave it like there to see that there is something that we consider correct, but it is destroying ourselves. That's why we should correct it, because it's not correct, because it destroys. Well, yes, no, but when you come back, it's gone. So, this is where, even when the drug addict takes drugs, he feels good for a while, but then it is destroying. So the chocolate, which is sweet, might be sweet in your mouth, but it will have a result that is not good. But leaving the subjective area, let us go back to this objective thing. Yeah. So to the function. So I just gave you a few examples for how people think on surface level. When we see tomorrow night the subconscious, then things will be much clearer for us why it is destroying what we think that is right, while it is not right. So deception always works in a way you don't know that's a deception. You think it's the right thing to do. So looking to the brain, coming down to the I just wanted to say, because of the one-sided diseases. For me, the one-sided disease has proved that disease is not by accident, like we learn it in medicine. In medicine, we learn that disease is by accident. You know, the neurosurgeon, the famous neurosurgeon, the parents bring their 15-year-old son or 16-year-old son because he has a brain tumor on one side, and they ask the neurosurgeon, why did he got this tumor? And the neurosurgeon says, bad luck. That's all he can say. Bad luck. And then he removes that tumor because he has that skill, but a year later, he's growing back. Bad luck. Can there anything grow without the power behind it? Yes or no? No. There must be a power that makes that growing. And how does this neurosurgeon doesn't know that? So in medicine, disease is by accident, because evolution is by accident. Evolution is by accident. That's why disease is by accident. It just happened to you without, there is no rule behind it. That's why we don't even search to find a rule behind it. We just have the best treatment for it. We push the natural remedies and we push this and that, but we never know what causes it. Because it's random. You go into a tram and you are in a bus and someone coughs beside you, and now you are sick because that person coughed on you. What is that? By accident. It's just, you know. But if that is true, then how much can you control your life, your health? How much? Zero. Then you're just exposed to something you can never control. Now, yes, we have things we cannot control, but health, if it is something that comes from the way we think, then it should be under our control. At least it was desirable to be under our control. And to not be, not 5 minutes, I cannot finish in 5 minutes. So, yes, but I have to finish the thing. So we have the cortex, and they are separated. That's why we have diseases that are one-sided, because they just come from one side of the brain. So, because here is the whole body in the cortex, and all the nerves go from exterior to the interior, like in every device. Everything from the exterior is governed into the interior. So the cortex is the external layer of the whole human body, and from there, all nerves go into the body, and then they switch to the sides. Then we have also 12 cranial nerves on each side, and so on. So, making it very simple, the cortex works by electrical impulse. That's the initial thing of all functions of our body, is the electrical impulse. And the electrical impulse is power. And that power goes into the limbic system, where there are many chemical industries, so I call them, where the hormones are made. And they are made on command of that electrical impulse that comes to that place that says, produce dopamine or produce anything, and then it's released to the whole body, but it also comes apart back to the cortex, which we perceive as emotion, and as an emotion gives us a result if the electrical impulse was correct or was incorrect according to the body. So that's very simple. Everything starts physically with an electrical impulse, and it comes to a chemical release, and it's always an disorder. Electrical impulse, chemistry, electrical impulse, chemistry. That's how the body works. That's how he works. That's the way it functions. And now we need to know, where do thoughts come from? What are the thoughts playing a role in our life? So we go back to the law. By what does the brain work? Can it produce its own fuel? Yes or no? Oh, it's a channel. It's an effect. So it cannot produce its own fuel. So by what does it work? It needs chemistry. We all know that without air, water, and sugar, it won't work. Where do we take it from? It's from nature. These elements we take from nature by eating, drinking, and all that. But that is not all. The function starts with electrical impulse in both brain sites. And the question is, the brain cannot generate its own electrical impulses. Who generates the impulse? Because he who generates the impulse is the power source for the brain. And the brain's power source is the power source for the whole body. So we don't start with the power in the stomach. The stomach has no power. The power that puts our whole being into action starts in the cortex with an electrical impulse. And that electrical impulse someone needs to put there. And the only one that can put it must be the human spirit or the human mind. Because he can process information, and by the decisions that he makes the electrical impulse. That's how it works. And the spirit, of course, has a lot of needs: freedom, security, curiosity, understanding, orientation, harmony, faithfulness, confirmation, reward, righteousness, truth, morals. I have never put all spiritual needs together, and I maybe believe they're infinite. But they all are spiritual. They have nothing chemical in it. There's security has no chemistry in it. Freedom has no chemistry in it. Righteousness has no chemistry in it. They are needs that the spirit needs to have to fulfill them. They're not found in the brain. They cannot be understood by the brain. They cannot be processed by the brain, because the brain is a chemical, a physical element. So thoughts are processing of information. But the information needs to fit my needs. If it's an information that does not fit my needs, it's a negative information. And if it's an information that fits my needs, it's a positive information. Those are the two things. And my decisions transform that information into an electrical impulse. So we work with electricity. The electricity is there. The spirit puts to the impulse, he puts it into the right place so that I can move my body, I can move my vocal cords, my lips, my tongues. It's all by my own decisions. There's no one else that can speak except me through the body. My spirit explains himself. So without a spirit, we are dead. The Bible says the body without the spirit is dead, as the works are dead without faith. Yeah? So I have many Bible verses. You can go home and study that. Put it into your computer. Tell me all the words with spirit, and you will be surprised that the Bible never speaks from a brain, like we speak today, also always of the brain, while in the Bible the brain doesn't play any role, because it's just an instrument of the Spirit. And he must do what the Spirit tells him. And also Ellen White has a lot of quotes about that, but most of us ignore it. So the Spirit comes first, and the body is second. Now, the Spirit is an element that cannot be controlled from outside. The body is an element that can only be controlled from outside. So between a spiritual element and a physical element, there are great differences. So the spirit governs itself from within, while the body cannot govern itself at all. It is governed from outside. The spirit is always active, never passive. The body cannot oppose the order. When someone wants to jump off a bridge to kill himself, can the body say, stop it? No, because he must do what the spirit commands to him, and then he falls down and it gets destroyed. So the circle starts in the spirit and it ends in the spirit, and they can only function together and cannot be separated. If they're separated, we're dead. So that's why when we measure no electrical energy anymore in the brain, then we know that person is death. It's not brain death. Brain death is still electrical impulses. When there's no electrical impulses, it's death. There's no revival, anything possible. When there is a brain death, that is where there is still electrical that's the brain death. Well, so then the terms are a little bit confusing. Yeah. So when there is no electrical impulse there, then you're dead. Yeah. So that's the better thing. So we don't speak about brain death or not. So because life obviously is where? In the head. Yes, it must be in the head. Yeah, it's not in the brain itself, but it's together with the brain, because there is life. And where there the separation happens, then life is over. So the body can do nothing by itself. From where does he has his power? His power comes from his own spirit that through decisions makes the impulse, and through this impulse he puts the whole being into function. And this impulse is that what makes everything work in us. Every hormones, there is nothing that is not governed by the impulses that our brain gets from the way we think. Now, I go through this. It would be nice to have a lot of time. We have our stomach. This is our digestive organs. We put chemistry into it. Who makes the digestion? Well, the stomach makes it, but can the stomach make digestion by itself? Which is the power that makes the digestion? Because the food cannot make the digestion, cannot digest itself. So the digestion is another process than the food. The food can not do it, so the food is digested. So who does it? It's the spirit by its thought. And if the thoughts are full of love and are free, they make the right electrical impulse, and digestion works well. But if you're having constipation or you have diarrhea and you have that as a chronic issue, then you have to go to what place to fix it? To eat more, or make, please, how you call it? All kinds of intervention. So what do you need to do? Change up here, and things go well again. Because the problem is in the mind that controls your digestion. And those who have known and experienced fear, they know what they feel, they know what it happens, and that more of the digestion issues are constipation. Many people have constipation, and you know where it comes from. You have hypertension, you have kidney issues, like I said, kidney stones. You have blood plates issues, that's the bone marrow there that makes the blood. You have liver issues. You have vision issues. Where do you have to go to fix it? And you need to know where the power starts for all of that. And that starts in your thoughts. And so, since you're the only one who thinks for your own body, that what is then most important in medicine to emphasize? The way we think. Is there any thinking school? Is there anything that puts that emphasis? And you know, we boast as Adventists that we have Ellen White, and she says that every school should teach the relationship between the mind and the body. There's no school to do that. Because we don't know how it works. We are not even aware that the power comes from the head down into the whole body. The power doesn't come through the oxygen, it doesn't come through the stomach. The power comes from here, down there, because before you can breathe, you need to have power to breathe. Before you can eat, you need to have power to eat. And that starts up here, where the life of the human starts. So the power source is in our head, and it all starts there. And so God created man out of how many elements? Now, out of how many elements did God create the human being? What did He take? 1, 2, 3, 4 elements? How much? No. How many elements did He take? He took the dirt. That's one element. And He took the breath of life. That's the second element. Yeah, the breath of life. And it's two elements. And when they bring them together, they transform. The earth becomes the body, and the breath of life becomes the spirit. And together they become soul. So we are a soul that has two elements, a spiritual and a physical element. The body is governed and controlled. It cannot control itself. The spirit controls himself and the body because he has responsibility. He can know, he can understand, he can calculate. He is different than the body. So I've finished very close. Human nature, the structure is very clear. We have two elements that make a third one. Yes, like oxygen and hydrogen makes water. We have the spirit and the body that makes the soul. The function is clear by this. The spirit controls the body. He puts the power of the body into the body. So the power does come from the word that he processes. Does he process it correctly? The power in the body is correct, will not be destroyed, like in the life of Jesus. But if he puts the wrong power into the body, he destroys it by himself. So that's why love is that what we need first, and chemistry is second, and that is science. No one can change that. And if we would all know ourselves, then we would know when we have some issues in our body, we would ask ourselves, what hit my body? And if there is nothing external that can hit it, then I go to my mind and I say, okay, what did I think that I hit and put in my body? The wrong impulse that injured it, so that I can stop that. Because if we continue it, that's the chronic disease, sometimes it's enough and then he breaks down by a heart attack or a stroke or cancer or something that comes into there, and we cannot control it anymore because we have put that input so long in the body that the repairing system cannot cope with it to repair it. So if anything you forget, let's never forget. We live from information, from the Word. And if we would process and would know that, then we would know that information determines our life. And that information is always connected to a person. It's always personal that we live from. That's why when you hear the news of your mother or your father, you get something in yourself. And if the news is positive, you feel good. If the news is negative, you feel bad. And now you need to know how to do it so that it is a good impulse to your body and not destroying it. So here we need some wisdom, we need understanding. Because if the power is in the Word, not in our thoughts, we just process thoughts with our spirit. But if the Word is the power, then that Word, if it's the truth, will give us our body's power for life. But if it's a lie, then it will destroy our body sooner or later. Thank you for listening. Tomorrow we will see how the impulse is made. Even that the Bible describes. It is amazing how much it is there, how the heart works, and how this impulse is made. And that was my greatest joy to know it, how it works. And when we see the simplicity how it works, our eyes will be lightened, our minds can see it, and may, by God's grace, even correct themselves in their own way of seeing things, so that the destruction in our body may stop, and the repairing system that God puts in ourselves will repair the damage that we made through whatever we made it. Thank you.